This is Milo, this is Cooper, this is their roadmap to success. I'm using this is Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver. And you saw they both really liked it. And so I'd recommend you guys get a jug of that. You can get it on Amazon or Chewy. I'm also going to leave you the bag of the Tricky Trainers. Those are soft ones. So I like to have a couple different types of treats. Now, anytime you give a treat for this, any command or any exercise, the treat goes in the mouth first. So remember, we have one mouth, so that's first. Then they hear the command word second. A lot of people say the command word and then give the treat. And that kind of inverts the order a little bit. So you want the treat in their mouth when they hear the command word. That makes them kind of favor the command word, feel better about it. All right, so this is the roadmap to success. I'm going to kind of summarize the things that we covered in this session. It's the end of the session, so I'm going to go a little bit backwards. I'm going to go over the stuff I'd like the Guardians to do first. Both dogs are a little insecure. Once they got to comfortable with us, they were both friendly, happy dogs, but both of them gave me indications they have cortisol in their blood, which is twitchiness and jumpiness. And so if you have dogs that do that, that's an indication of cortisol, the stress hormone in the blood. It shuts down on non-essential body functions, and it also amplifies all the senses. And so little things are gonna, anything drops, they're gonna be, kind of on edge. And so, he definitely seemed to be, Milo definitely seemed to be a little bit sensitive or shy. You saw in the video above, he was a little bit unnerved because we just asked him to stay out of the kitchen, and that just was unnerving for him because it's the first time that's happened. He'll get better at it with that, but we want to use as soft a correction for him as possible. He probably doesn't need very much. So when you're hissing, you don't have to hiss at level 5, probably get a level 2 or 3, but it also depends what he's doing. If he's barking at the neighbor kid, I wouldn't normally hiss for that, but if you did want to, you might have to hiss higher. So basically, for lower dogs that have lower self-esteem, a great thing that you can do is teach them some new tricks and commands. That's a great way to boost their self-esteem and confidence. It's also gives you a number of great ways to redirect the dog's attention. So I showed you how to do the hurricane. So the hurricane is you have one treat in your hand, you rotate, and some dogs only go one direction. Cooper did both directions. So you have them complete the circuit, and then you pop the treat in their mouth and say typhoon or whatever the word is you want to do. So I usually do that about 4 or 5 treats when I have the treat in this hand, and then I have it with an empty hand, but I make it look like I have a treat, and they do the same motion, and then I treat from the other hand. So now they're starting to follow the hand without the treat. Otherwise, you only do this and you don't have a treat, they won't do it. So if, I usually about 5 without a treat, and then one with the treat, and then I start transitioning with the treat. Eventually doing them all with the treat, you don't have to lure. And once I get to that point, then I start raising it over the dog's head a little bit. And I keep on doing it until eventually you go like this, and that means to do a hurricane or typhoon or whatever you want. They both like to hump each other. And so if you see them doing it and you get the dog that's humping to do a hurricane, that'll dismount the other dog, and you don't have to go over and disagree with it. I'd also like the Guardians to, we have a family here, so I'd like them to take turns and go to YouTube, find some funny dog tricks. Now, there are dog tricks that are easy, there are dog tricks that are hard. At first, I want you to keep them very easy. The hurricane is an easy one. The other one that I showed you is I call take a lap. I lure the dog this way. When it comes this way, I put my some treats in this hand behind my back, and I kind of connect it. Now I pull this hand away, and the dog follows this hand around. When it gets all the way around me, I say take a lap, or patrol, or whatever the word is you want to use. And eventually you teach the dog to just do a circle around you. And then you can actually have him go around this leg and in between your legs, and you just have some fun with it. Teach him to play dead. Teaching him to stay. Stay is harder, but the idea is we want to come up with fun tricks and commands, and preferably nothing with the paw or jumping up, because that can create some confusion. But dogs that are confident, that know a lot of skills, are more confident. Confident dogs are less likely to be reactive, and I think it's going to help for both dogs. Yes, go get that bird. All right, so let me see. I'd also, if you're interested, let us know, and we can send Dominique back to show you how to do the relaxation protocol. Basically what that is we teach the dog to sit and be calm with various levels of stimulus that we gradually increase the intensity level until eventually a marching man runs through your house and the dog just sits there calmly and quietly. I think in both your dog's cases, it'd be really beneficial. Dominique probably only has to come by once, and then she'll give you the list so you guys can practice several times a day in different rooms with different dogs. When you are doing the training, separate the dogs. Work with them one at a time. People always try to do it at the same time. Studies show it'll be quite a bit faster if you separate them and work with them separately, because one might pick something up faster than the other. For practice, for any training, unless it's some stay or something where you're working past it, you want to keep your practice sessions to like 2-3 minutes maximum, and always end on a good repetition. If you get frustrated and the dog senses you're frustrated and that's what you end on, that's the freshest memory they're going to have about it, and they're not going to want to do it again because you didn't seem to like it last time. All right, so let me see. We talked about exercise. These dogs are walked when the weather's nice. Milo gets more needs more exercise. They play with each other and play fetch. Fetch is a great thing that we can incorporate a little bit of structure to. So Milo likes playing fetch, and I don't have anything here, so I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to talk about it. So show him that you have the object. Tell him to sit. If he sits within 3 seconds, then I throw it and say the word fetch. When he picks it up, I say fetch, and when he comes back to me, I give him a treat or pet him and say fetch. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds of me saying sit, I put the ball here, and then I pull up my phone, and I do some other things. We're playing the game by my rules, and what we're trying to do is sneak in a little bit of obedience and checking in and authority for the human, i.e. listening to the human. So if you want to play fetch, you have to do something for me, and I require a sit. And if you don't sit, that's fine. I'm not going to yell at you. You're not. Remember, good attention, bad attention is the same thing for dogs. So I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to chastise. I'm not going to ask you to do it multiple times. I'm just on to the next thing, and you're SOL. After a while, the dog will recognize either I do it the human's way the first time, or the human's onto something else, and it doesn't bother them at all. And that will motivate the dog to want to do it more. Most of us rob our dogs of any motivation to want to listen to us because they just simply, we give them everything they want without having to do anything. Just realizing the camera's a little bit high, so I'm going to adjust it a little bit down. All right, so let me see what else. Basically for fetch, incorporate that. First, the dog has to sit before you pick up the ball and throw it. Then he has to sit and wait a second before you throw it, or maybe ask for a down. So helping dogs practice going up, energy level, and then calming down is really important. And if we find activities that they like to do, like I mentioned, this is called a pre-mac. So one less desirable behavior gets a more desirable behavior. So if I sit, the human will throw the ball for me. Sitting is a more subordinate position, and so it helps the dog feel a little bit more relaxed and more in tune with the leadership that the human's offering. And look for other opportunities to do that as well. You want to go for a walk? Sit. I'm not going to pick up the leash until you're seated. And then as soon as the dog sits, if it doesn't sit, then I would walk away. And this is why it's important to practice leashing up your dog when you're not planning on going for a walk. It's a nice way to desensitize them. So I say sit. If the dog sits, then I reach for the leash. If it gets up, I pull my hand back and say sit. If it sits within 3 seconds, I reach again. If it doesn't sit, I go on to whatever I was doing before. The dog is now not going to get validated for that. And after enough repetition, the dog will realize, I better do it the way David wants. Now, as a behaviorist, what I try to do is break things down in individual steps. First of all, I make the easiest version of the activity. Then I break it down into individual steps or slices and help the dog practice the first step over and over and over again until the dog is behaving the way that I want in the easiest version of it. Only then to go to step 2 and practice the same thing. Step 3, 4, 5. Eventually, we get to the point where the dog knows how to behave throughout the entire procedure. Then we bring all the steps together. Then we start making the level of the challenge more difficult until we work our way back to real world situations. Okay, so let me see. I'd like to see the dogs have all the humans in the house, how many times you want to do it, but I'd like to get to the point where each dog knows at least 12 different commands. And those are great ways to, like I said, redirect their attention. So practice one for each week and try to do one a week, but you might have to do 2 a week or 1 every 2 weeks if they're more difficult, or if we're busy and Corona ends and we don't have as much time. But take advantage of the Corona. Boosting both these dogs' confidence is going to really help with a lot of areas. The barking at the fence, barking at the door, twitchiness, a lot of areas. And we just want the dogs to be nice and calm and confident. Getting back to exercise. So fetch is a great way to exercise. I would do it with an empty stomach and fetch Milo the first time until he drops and won't do it. And I know he probably will fetch a lot. We had a Border Collie in one of our puppy classes that fetched 192 times before it stopped. Most people never get to that point, so you never know where the end date is. So just keep on fetching him with an empty stomach, remember, until he doesn't want to play anymore. Now we know what his maximum number is. And then we could fetch him 50 to 75% of that number. We're going to kind of play around with the numbers, the quantities, until we find the right amount. Maybe before a guest comes over, Milo needs 25 or 35 fetches. Before a walk, maybe he gets 10 fetches. Maybe before the boy's out in the backyard, he needs 50 fetches or whatever it is. So we can kind of calibrate the amount of exercise versus the activity and set the dog up for success. Remember, lack of exercise is going to amplify the problems you have, and more exercise is going to make it easy to fix the problems that you have. So that's exercise. Well, no, I'm sorry, that's the fetch. Other forms of exercise, and I would use the crack or the freeze-dried beef liver for this. Show Milo, I have a treat. While he's looking, I throw the treat over there, down the stairs. Remember, anytime he gets the treat goes in the mouth first. Come up with a funny word that means go down the stairs. Call it Jamaica, Mexico, Cabo, Australia, whatever it is, a word that means go down the stairs. So when he looks it up, you say the word, then you show him that you have a treat. Milo, You run to the top of the stairs, give him another treat, and say Canada. Yes, you get one for you being the old dog. And so now we have created a command word to go down the stairs and up the stairs. This is similar to what Dominique showed you about how to teach the dog to leave a room that we did earlier in the session. So the idea is now we can have a doggy stairmaster. So he might need 50 runs up and down the stairs, and each down up is 1, where he might only need 30. And that's okay. There are different stages of their life. The idea is to find out what the maximum number is for that one as well. So remember, 5 minutes of a treat toss on the stairs is equivalent to like a half an hour to a 45-minute walk, but we can do it right before a guest comes over if it's raining or snowing or icy. Dog exercise is best done every 4 hours. Well, 2 to 4 hours. When they're dogs this size probably sleep about 14 to 16 hours a day. When they're asleep, they're recharging their batteries. They wake up and they need to burn that energy. So it needs to come multiple times a day in shorter spurts. So if we can use the doggy stairmaster, a game of fetch, we also incorporate a walk. Maybe we do some scent games. Just Google that, hiding treats around. And then maybe we feed them out of a snuffle mat and we get an Omega Paw treat bowl. So now we've got 5 or 6 different ways to exercise that are kind of creative and sneaky that are not done at once. They're sprinkled throughout the day. When your dog is naughty, ask yourself how long has it been since Milo's been exercised. If it's been longer than an hour, it's most likely that he's being naughty because he has too much energy. Take him outside and play fetch for like 3 or 4 minutes, bring him inside, and you can't see Cooper right here, he's lying on the floor, but a tired dog is often referred to as a well-behaved dog. As humans, we often confuse a dog excitement as happiness, but an excited dog, just like us, I'm going to make more mistakes when I'm excited than right now. I'm calm and balanced and focused, and I'm collecting my thoughts of what we went over in the session. I can convey all of them because I'm not worried. Right before I came to the session, I had a woman on the phone that was signing up for our puppy classes, and I was looking at the clock. I need to get hurry. I'm going to be late to my session. And so every time she would pause or ask a question, I started getting a little bit more anxious. And so a lot of times when it comes to dogs, we try to train them in the moment. It's always best to pick and choose a range of time so that you have enough time to do it. And you're not rushed and you're not adding artificial things on it. They're going to make it harder. Okay, so those are some creative ways of exercise. You can also get a doggy backpack. They're like a harness and they have pockets here. So you can put bottles of water or bags of sand or whatever it is. Make sure you check with your vet and make sure your vet's okay with that because it's a repetitive deal for all this exercise. I think they'll both be fine with it. Now for Cooper, because he's got a problem with his back legs, the stairs might not be good for him. So check with your vet to make sure that none of these things are going to be worse. And also for him, I would look at what I get is on Amazon. It's Cosequin, Cosequin. I got the double strength one because of the size dog, and I have a Dalmatian that was about the same size. I gave him 3 of those a day, one with breakfast. I feed my dogs breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so one throughout the day. You want to kind of space it out. You have to give them a higher dosage at first to kind of build up in their system and then lower, and you should notice that in a couple of weeks it should have an impact on him. If it doesn't have an impact on him, just finish the bottle. If you don't notice a difference, it might not be something for him. Your vet will give you some other options as well. I just try to stay away from steroids and stuff like that if I can. That's really, Cosequin's more like a vitamin. Okay, we also talked about rules. These dogs actually have more rules than like 90% of my clients. They are not allowed to be on the furniture. That's the hardest rule for most people. They don't want to give it up. But for dogs, the higher they sit, the more rank or status they have. So it's a good rule for them to have. Children go through life probing to see what they can get. Dogs go through life probing waiting for the leader to tell them that's too far, that's the limit. So when dogs are probing to get something, we look at that and we identify that as being mischievous or naughty or not listening to us. They might have to probe 20 or 30 times because we are so inconsistent as humans. That's what confuses the dogs. It's not the dogs being confused, it's our inconsistent reactivity or reaction to the behavior. Remember, it takes 66 days to form a behavior pattern. Every time they do the old habit, they kind of practice doing that old habit. So you really need to block the old way and spend about 3 months practicing a new way before they develop that new behavior pattern and start doing the thing that you want them to do. So some of the rules that I suggested: sit at the door, go to the door, say sit one time. If the dog doesn't sit within 3 seconds, sit at the table, read a magazine or something for 1 minute, set a timer. After 1 minute, go back to the door, command them to sit, don't ask. And let's say Cooper sits within 3 seconds, I let him out and I don't let Milo out. So I'm paying based on performance. Something else I'd like you to do is every once in a while pull out one treat and say, come. Whoever comes and sits first gets the treat. Whoever comes second doesn't get anything unless it's pretty much the same level of effort. Then I would break the treat in half and give them to both. A lot of us make sure we give both dog a treat no matter what. We rob them of any motivation to want to listen to us. So I get a treat for the first person who comes to me. Whoever comes second doesn't get a darn thing. After a while, that motivates the second dog to better be there first, and now they're giving the same effort. They get the same treat. Okay, so for the door, tell them to sit one time. If they don't sit within 3 seconds, sit down, wait 1 minute, then go back to the door and command them again. This time, if they don't do it, sit down within 3 seconds. Don't sit within 3 seconds. I sit down and I wait 2 minutes before I give them another opportunity. Next time I wait 4 minutes, 8 minutes, keep doubling length of time. Eventually the dogs will sit at the door as a way of asking to come out. You have steps going inside from the outside, so I would probably have them sit there. And you could do this the same thing with the mat that I showed you for the counter conditioning exercise for the doorbell. So if I want them to sit here, what I would do is I would come over here with like about 10 treats, say sit right in this area. When he sits, pop the treat in his mouth, they say sit. And then I would do that 10 times, maybe take a step back, the dog gets up, come back there and sit, do it about 10 times in a row. Then I would have him and I would step away and have them walk back over there and have the person open the door, crack, and say sit. He just did it 9 or 10 times, and as soon as he sits down, you open the door and invite him in. So that is a good way to jumpstart the behavior. And after a while, you can just open the door and just say sit, and he sits out here and you let him in. If he doesn't sit, he doesn't get to come in. You can also make him sit before you let him out of the car, before you let him into the car, before you let Milo out of the kennel. Just remember, for Milo, we really don't want him to be in the kennel for longer than 5 minutes, 4 hours maximum. And so if you do want to, if you do have Dominique come back, she can show you the relaxation protocol, also show you our technique to stop dogs from developing separation anxiety, which really teach them to stay and desensitizing them. So she could probably accomplish both those things in a visit, and then you guys practice each on a daily basis until the dog has the skills. That way you're not paying us to do it, and the dog develops more respect for you as a leader, and you're developing that skill set. Let me see, what else? Sit before I pick up the leash to put it, to give you, take you for a walk. And I have video for that. You can go to doggonproblems.com and search for Calm Leash. There's a video that explains how to do that. Video explains pretty much all the stuff I'm going through there as well. All right, so other rules: not be allowed in the kitchen when we're eating, or when we're cooking food, not be allowed in the dining room table when we're eating. And I would kind of, you got to figure out, because you have a work island with a kind of an L. So if the people are sitting there, you got to figure out a boundary where they're about 5 feet away. You might also get a piece of carpet, like I mentioned, for your living room, or just put painter's tape down on the carpet. And then again, teach them to leave the room the way that Dominique showed you, and then have somebody eat a snack there, and somebody else there with them, so the person can eat a snack, and the other person can correct the dog and help enforce that invisible boundary until the dogs realize when people are eating in the kitchen or in the dining room table, I'm not allowed to be in the dining room. They're eating in the living room, not allowed to be there. And the dogs will voluntarily move away. We always want the dogs to do the work. We don't want to do it for them or micromanage the dog. We want to put the dogs in a situation where they learn it on their own. Let me see, what else do we, other rules. When they're eating, the humans need to eat, whoever's feeding them needs to eat something first, just 5 bites of something, and then you can give the dogs permission to eat. I would let Cooper eat first, and when Cooper's eating, Milo's not allowed to be in the room or within 7 feet. When Cooper gets done, he leaves the room, and then we invite Milo in, and then Cooper's not allowed in the room when Milo's in there. Probably Cooper won't want. But now we help the dog practice restraining themselves. They could go into the room, but they're not doing it because we've taught them not to, and they respect the authority. That helps them also practice self-restraint and self-control, and helps the dog see that you're controlling the situation and not allowing them in. It takes a little bit longer to feed them, but instead of spending all this time doing exercise, you just spend an extra minute or two. After a while, you won't even have to supervise it. I have 3 dogs, and I just say butts, butts, butts. They put their butt in the corner. I go to my office the other side of the house, and I just yell the command words out. And I'll talk, to do that, just use that passive training. So when Cooper's eating, maybe we call his pork chop. So every time Cooper takes his first bite of food for 4 months, we say pork chop when he takes that first bite, just once. After a while, pork chop to Cooper means there's food in my mouth. When Milo hears pork chop, there's no food in his mouth. So it makes a command word for one dog, not the other. So give each dog a unique command word, your favorite dish, name of your favorite restaurant, and eventually you can just be sitting on the couch watching TV, and then they're sitting there waiting outside the laundry room, and you say, pork chop, and he goes over there to eat. That kid wants some pork chops. All right, so other rules, let me see. I mean, those are kind of the examples of rules, but look for other opportunities. You want the dogs to practice self-restraint, self-control, so they practice not doing things instinctively. And that also gives you an opportunity to enforce that boundary. That helps them see you as a leader. The more they see you acting like leader by enforcing rules, the more they're going to feel like it's the human's job to handle it, not our job, and they can start relaxing and don't have to be on duty all the time. All right, we also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if the dog nudges you, barks at you, paws at you, jumps up on you to ask for attention. Leaders tell, followers ask. So the dog tells me what to do, nothing happens. But if, other than I give it a counter order, tell it to sit. If it's already sitting here, I make it come and sit over here or ask it to lie down. And it has 3 seconds to comply. If it doesn't comply, I show the dog I have other things to do. Remember, playing hard to get works great for dog training. So if I say come, Milo's over there. Milo, come. If I keep on calling him, I'm just watering down my authority because nothing bad happens if I don't come. I don't believe in punishing dogs, but that's where pulling that one treat out will help because that motivates them when to come. Passive training will help with this as well. All right, so the dog nudges you or barks you, whatever it is, you give it a counter tilt to sit. If you try sitting here, sit here, or lay down. If they do it within 3 seconds, you pet them under the chin. Try to avoid petting both dogs over the head. Try to pet them under the chin if all things are equal, but you can scratch the shoulder, their butt, anywhere. Just avoid patting up here. So if he does sit, I pet him under the chin, say the word sit, and then I pet him as much or as little as I want. If he didn't, I don't pet him at all. So do it my way to get attention. If you don't do it my way, that's fine. You can do whatever you want, but you don't get rewarded. After a while, the dogs will recognize, if I want a human's attention, I can't demand it anymore. I have to ask for it. Better than ask, I have to pay for it. And they'll start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. That's very desirable. When they do, make sure you reach over and pet them. Don't take it for granted, because eventually they'll go back to doing the other thing. Now, remember to use the watchword of paycheck. Paycheck means I suspect you forgot to pet with a purpose. So if somebody says paycheck to me, I'd say, no, you missed it. I did it right. You missed it. No. They say paycheck. I stop petting even if I did it right. Tell the dog to sit. If it sits, I pet it on her shin and say sit, and they say, actually, I asked him to sit. When you flushed the toilet, he stood up, and I continue petting, but thank you. So I do forget to pet without a purpose. We have other watchwords, vocabulary. If you're using the different versions of the command word, I'd like the family to come up with a list of the official command words. And then if I say come here and the words come, somebody says vocabulary, I go, thank you, come. So it's much easier for the dogs if we only use one command word for each thing. And whenever possible, with these new tricks, because your dogs are both nervous, I'd like you to make a point of the commands, the new tricks you're going to teach them, come up with fun command words. I'd like you to do it for all future command words. Dogs should read facial expressions. So if you say pork chop, the dog goes and eats, and people laugh and smile, that motivates the dog to want to do it. That puts the dog in a good, confident mood. So if I want my dogs to lay down, I say crash. If I want my dogs to crawl on the floor, I call it sneaky. I say sneaky, and my dogs drop down and crawl across the room, people laugh. That motivates the dog. They want to entertain us. We just do a really horrible job of communicating what they can do to make us happy. All right, so I say repeat or rerun if somebody's saying the word multiple times. And then I use celebrate if we're missing an opportunity to pet the dog for desired behavior. Remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet is what you're rewarding. So I pet him or give him attention when he's whining like that, that gets him that attention. Speaking of which, this works for unbalanced behaviors as well. If you pet a fearful dog, you will make it more fearful. I'm guessing, dollars to donuts, that the guardians here have been petting both of these dogs when they're nervous or anxious, and that's going to reinforce it. So if the dog's nervous or anxious about something, increase the distance between them and whatever it is until they can sit and lay down or take a treat. Those are good indicators that they're far enough away. But remember, don't correct them for no, because good attention, bad attention is the same thing. So, so if your dog is fearful, you can lay your hand on them. They associate this touch with affection, but as soon as I start petting or scratching, I'm going to make it worse. And it's probably the most common mistake people make with dogs. So don't pet a dog for jumping, barking, whining, anxious, fearful, stressed, any of those things. Instead, redirect them to something else. That's why I want to use those other commands, so that we can reward them for doing something we want. Birds are messing with the dogs, as opposed to the things we don't want. So for passive training, what we're doing is we're celebrating the things the dogs we do that we want. Cooper just came. Come. He just came. I didn't ask him to come, but he did it on his own. And so when the dog comes, I pet him and say, come. I don't ask him to come. I just reward when he does it on his own. When he SITs, pet him and say the word sit. When he lays down, pet him and say crash or chill or down or whatever your word is. Again, come up with a command word for each dog to eat. So his words may be pork chop and his is meatloaf or whatever it is. And so every time the dog eats, we say the command word. We don't say meatloaf because he doesn't know what that means. We wait for him to put it in context, then we say it. All right, so we use celebrate as the watchword. So if somebody says celebrate to me, I just come. I don't ask what I was doing. Remember, you only have 3 seconds. So if somebody says celebrate, I just look at the dog. If he's standing there, I assume he come, and just pet him and say come. If he's sitting, that's pretty obvious. Laying down is pretty obvious. You teach your dog to do all sorts of weird things. I taught one of my dogs to grumble this way. Every time he would grumble, I'd say pet him and say grumble. Now I can say grumble, and he grumbles on command. So try to think of fun command words for all the stuff that you're going over. We also went over the escalating consequences. I'm not going to go over those here. If you get those, let me know, and I'm happy to go over them over the phone. But use those to disagree with the dogs for unwanted behaviors. The more that, but also make sure we're rewarding the desired behaviors as much as possible. A lot of us spend most of our time and efforts on rewarding or correcting the dogs the wrong thing, and because good attention, bad attention is the same thing. They do what we don't want them to do. So right here, Cooper's walking by. Come. See, and you saw he ducked his head a little bit. That was on me. I should have petted him under his chin. And you're going to catch yourself doing it the wrong way. Come up with a word for that as well. You guys need to come up with a word that tells you guys all to pet under the chin instead of up here. So call it under or Australia or whatever you want to say. But eventually, if you put them in that nose up orientation, they'll feel more calm and confident. Come. And you're the sensitive one. Yes, you were. All right, practice the counter conditioning exercise I showed you in the video that's above this one. And if you want to work on that relaxation protocol, let us know. We're happy to have Becca come over to you and she can work on that. Cooper, Milo, come here. Sit. Cooper, by the way, Milo, if he starts moving slow, that's an indication that he feels uncomfortable. So if he ever starts slowing down on something or doesn't want to come towards something or don't want to look at it, that's an indication he's uncomfortable at it. We need to figure out how can I break that activity down into small steps and help him practice it over and over again. Oh, I'm glad I remembered. So because he's he was the more insecure when we first came in. What you want to do when you have guests come over, the guests should ignore the dogs. The more we try to pet and engage with them, the less likely they're going to want to do it. Sorry, I was about to sum up, but I forgot this. This is important for you guys. So get that crack, and also get those bully sticks. So when guests comes over, what you want to do is I would take a piece of crack and probably have Milo not there if he's just going to gobble them all up. And if he needs it, we can do it with both dogs interchangeably, but one dog at a time. So let's say that the guest is sitting where the camera is and I'm the dog. Well, the guest should take out, or let's say the camera's the dog and I'm the guest. The guest takes out a treat and throws it halfway distance between the two of us. Don't say, hey, come here and get this, Cooper. Just make sure he sees it and throw it on the ground. And if Cooper won't get that within about a minute, then pull out another piece. Let's say that's 50% of the way between us. Then I would throw a treat 75% away from me, so it's 25% closer to the dog. All we want to do, if he only leans forward and takes the treat and backs away, that's progress. Eventually he'll take one step towards us and take the treat and walk away, then 2 steps, 3 steps, eventually starts lingering. The guest should not try to pet him, either dog, until they're actually sniffing them first. And when you do, when I pet a dog, I like to go like this. And if you notice real quick, he moved his ears and he dealt it back a little bit. There he came forward. So whenever I go to pet a dog, I go like this. If the dog comes forward, then I can reach over and pet them. Remember, if the dog pulls his head back, turns his head, or ducks his head down, that's the dog's way of saying, I don't want you to pet me. And we think as a human, what I'm doing is a good thing is petting. It'll help him like me. It won't. It'll amplify the fear if you can pet him. And also it tells the dog, the human's not listening to what I'm saying. So I have a deal with your dogs and with guests. Anybody wants to pet your dog? Can I pet your dog? Sure. We just have a deal. You have to stop like an inch in front of their nose and make sure that they want you to pet them. And if they nudge you, then you can pet them. If they don't, we want them to feel like I don't have to bark at you because that's what they both do. And so this is a great way to help give a replacement behavior. All I have to do is turn my head away and the human back away. I don't have to bark. And that'll help with both of these guys. I'm going to talk about one last thing, let me wrap this up. So toss those treats, and I get the dog coming closer and closer. And when the dog gets close enough, then you want to hold the treat out to the side. Front facing is confrontational. So for guests, it'd be nice if the guests are sitting down and they're holding a treat out to the side. The dog comes over. At first couple times, just give a treat just for coming. After a while, then you maybe ask for a sit. One time. If the dog doesn't sit, then the guest goes back to talking. And remember, you might want to get this. This is the mini treat pouch from PetSafe. You can get these on Amazon. They're about $15-20. Loaded up with all kinds of great treats. It can clip onto whoever their shorts or pants or belt or whatever it is. Now the dogs realize the guest here, whenever the guest comes out, we pull out those really amazing great treats. They only get it for when the guest comes. So that makes the guest a more positive experience. And then after a while, the guest says, sit. And if he sits, then you put the treat in the mouth, and then they would say the word sit. If he doesn't, then the guest pulls it back just like I did and continues the conversation. Eventually, the dog will learn the only way I'm going to get that treat is if I do what the human's asking me, and the human's not asking me very much. And if a dog sits near a human, that's an indication they feel calm and comfortable and relaxed. Now, there's a little boy that lives across in the backyard, and the dogs, he really likes Cooper, but the little boy might have been younger and really developed a great relationship with Cooper. When Milo came, sometimes kids become little stinkers. That doesn't mean they're a bad kid, but sometimes they want to be mischievous. Maybe they're teasing and try to maybe grabbed Milo one day, and Milo wouldn't let Milo go. He was trying to pet him. Maybe the kid just had his hands stuck on his collar, and Milo panicked, tried to get away, and he thought the kid was holding him. Stuff like that happens all the time. But now Milo goes over there and barks at the child. So what I would do is, again, before he goes out, before you're doing this, make sure that Milo gets enough exercise. And again, vary those amounts until you find that Goldilocks amount. then I would talk to your neighbors over there. Now you can use the crack for that, but I would, as long as they're not lactose intolerant, talk to the folks at Green Spot about that. They can show you how you can actually give him a little bit and see if it actually he is lactose intolerant, or has a sensitive stomach, or if he's just stressed out. I think he's just probably stressed out, but it could be both. So what you want to do then is give, if you got string cheese, and slice it into a whole bunch of nickels, so they're really thin, but little wafers. I like using string cheese because it's white, the contrast against grass, it's really easy to see. This is the same color as dirt, and so it'd be harder for the dog to see on the grass. So what you want to do is he gets a proper amount of exercise, and after exercise, they need at least 10 minutes to recover. I don't know, I'm holding up a 5, but 10 minutes to recover before you do the next thing. And remember, no exercise until it's been 90 minutes after they've eaten. So basically what I would do is I would have Milo on a leash. So one of you has him on a leash and go to this far side of the fence, and I would start about 15 feet away from that fence on your back of your yard. Have the little boy over there, and have the little boy walking along the fence, and if Milo is barking at him, then you have to keep moving Milo further and further towards the house, away from their house, till you can find a distance where he'll actually not bark. And if you can't find that distance, let me know. I can show you how you can use counter conditioning to help him have a positive association through something called a CER. But let's say that we get 15 feet and he's comfortable because we exercise him first and he's with you. So the little boy walks, and we have the little boy throw the piece of cheese over the fence every 2 steps. First one, maybe every step. He takes a step, he throws a treat, piece of cheese, takes a step, throws a piece of cheese. So the cheese is coming first, then he's stepping after that, and he's walking the length of the fence. You're walking about 10 or 15 feet away with Milo on a leash. Every time he throws a cheese, you let Milo go get the cheese and then come back to that 15 feet, and you're walking this way. The fence is here, so you're walking parallel to the fence. So at 15 feet, once you get all the way there, if he did good and he didn't bark, when you turn around, go to 14 feet and then have the little boy throw the cheese this way. 13 feet, let's say you get to 12 feet and he starts to bark, or he gets a little stiff, or he's breathing heavy, or he's keeping his mouth closed. That's his indication you're starting to get towards my breaking point. We don't want to push to the breaking point. We want to stop before the dog feels the need to express itself. So maybe we go 15 feet, 14 feet, and 13 is too much. Well, we back up to 14, always end on a good one. And then we have the boy go away, and then we maybe play a little bit of a game with him, play a little fetch or something that he likes. So he does this work activity, and then something good happens for him afterwards. And he didn't have to pet the boy didn't say anything to him, he just got a whole bunch of cheese or whatever the treats are that he likes. And then you have the boy come back at least 15 minutes later, or the next day, or whenever you want to do it. But you want to try to do this a whole bunch in a row in a very short period of time, because you're going to get tired of doing it, the boy's going to be tired of doing it. So see if you can try to do it during Corona, see if you can do it 3 times a day for a week. And by the end of the week, you should be able to have Milo walking the length of the fence, and now the little boy is offering the little pieces of cheese through the fence like that and giving it to him. And then when he gives it to him, I would come up with a word that means, maybe have them say friendly or amigos or something like that, so that that it means, amigos means run to the fence and go get some treats. So now instead of Milo running at the fence and jumping and barking at him, he sees the little boy as the provider of this cheese, and the presence of the little boy means this is the fun game where I get a lot of treats. Milo will like doing that. The more that happens, the less he's going to be likely to bark. And after a while, you get to a point where you won't even remember that he barked at all. Milo, come here. So again, he's moving a little bit slow. You can't see it on camera. Cooper, you guys are supposed to be one on either side. Cooper, come here, buddy. Sit. 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 That's Milo. This is Cooper, and this is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.